Hej och välkommen till seminariet allihopa. Jag heter Daniela Bramsum och jag är Havremagasines verksamhetsutvecklare och programsamordnare. Och idag startar vi som projekt den digitala satsningar i en post-covid-era. En projekt av Havremagasinet i samarbete med KUBN som består av 5 virtuella möten. Idag är den första. Och den 12 november kommer vi att ha vårt fysiska möte här i Boden i det vackra huset. Det här är idags program och Karin Erixon kommer att prata lite om KUBN och sen vi kommer att höra MUNCH och till sist Taikabox. Okej, så Karin, varsågod.
Tack så mycket. Hej. Mitt namn är Karin Erixon och jag är projektledare för organisationen KUBN. I will continue my talk in English just so Jan also understand and maybe someone else that needs to hear it in English. I'm the project leader of the organization KUBN, Culture for Youth and Kids in Norrbotten. And together with Havremagasinet, like Daniel said, we are arranging this seminar serie here. This picture is from our website, and there you can read a bit more about the different projects that we do. So the organization started in 2012, so it's an old organization, but it's re-established last year. And I came in as a project leader in November last year. So during this year, 2022, we kind of worked with re-establish the organization, and we just got a big funding from Kultur, so we're starting our pilot project now in the fall in Haparanda. I don't think I have so much time today to talk about KUBN, but I would love you to go in and see our website is kubnorrbotten.se, and there you can find more information about us and things that we do, and also the people behind KUBN. We also have a small part there where you can read about being a member and things that we can help you with. So we also work as a contact between schools and KUBN and different projects that maybe you as an artist want to involve, or maybe you represent an organization or institution. You can also contact us, and we will have we can guide you in our contact net and build contacts. Yeah. I think I forward the word to Zeenat from Oslo, and we hear about the MUNCH.
Thank you very much, and thank you for reaching out and inviting me to this great gathering here. So I'm from the MUNCH Museum in Oslo. I have this great view here that you cannot see. I'm just going to turn it from the water of Oslo, and there you have Tracy Emmon's mother. That's on the backside of the museum, of the MUNCH Museum. So my name is Zeenat Amiri, and I'm an art historian, art mediator here at the MUNCH Museum. And my primary target group is children and youth. So what I do is I have the great privilege of talking and having dialogues and showing children around, and most of them are 7th graders. I thought I was going to share my screen. Okay, so this is me a long time ago. This is me in 2020. What I'm going to talk to with you guys today is this concept that I call the meme with MUNCH, or meme med MUNCH, as we call it in Norwegian. The world closed down. What now? How do we reach them? We had so little time. We were really stressed out. How do we reach the children? Because we get all of 7th graders in Oslo visiting us here at the MUNCH Museum, all of them. It's a part of the Den kulturelle skolesekken, which is how do you call it? It's an organization that works with culture and art and the different aspects around it, and make sure that all children around in Norway get to experience art and culture as a part of their education. And all 7th graders come here. But when we close down, what do we do? How do we reach them, right? And we had a couple of goals. Our first goal was to offer our art experiences and reach classes through dialogues with 7th graders in Oslo and in Norway in general. That was a huge goal to achieve, but we kind of expanded from Oslo to Norway once we had tested, and we kind of found out that, oh wait, we have an opportunity here. We can actually reach further than we actually initially thought. So this is the new MUNCH Museum, as you can see by the water. And many of the children, they wanted to come to the new museum. The new museum was also closed because of COVID. We didn't get to open. We opened in 2021. So the second goal was to create a participatory and relevant, sorry about the misspelling, because I switched from Norwegian to English just 15 minutes before. And it was important for us to create a participatory and relevant experience with a digital value and not a copy of a museum visit, because that is absolutely impossible to do, especially when you think about this attention span of children who are used to digital platforms. You will lose them for sure. So how do you keep them interested in having a dialogue with you? So the background of Meme with MUNCH, it started with another concept that we tested out. It was called Modige MUNCH, meaning brave monk. We tested out a concept, and it was a broadcasting in a studio, as you can see here in the exhibition. And we also had 2 people from the same, like, what do you call it? It was a skuespiller, actors troupe, and they were to act out and have fun with the children and kind of develop a concept to reach them. But we figured out a couple of things. One, it was really forced. The concept was very forced. Modige MUNCH, the fact that we're saying that MUNCH was brave and starting with a concept and trying to convince the children that MUNCH was moody, brave, that did not work. It didn't reach the children. It was like we were trying to convince the children why the art of Edvard Munch was important, and that's where you lose them. It didn't speak their language, right? And the second thing that we learned was having a film broadcast through a PowerPoint. I don't know if you guys have tested this, but having a movie within a PowerPoint and then sharing it is extremely, if you have bad internet, if they have bad internet, you have issues, right? So from that, we learned that, you know what, we need to step back and we need to talk about the language that children are speaking. How do we reach them? And so I developed the Meme with MUNCH. Meme with MUNCH is all about trying to explain to these children that art and memes have a lot in common, especially the art of Edvard Munch. Edvard Munch worked with both text and with imagery. He changed the titles of artworks, and that changed how we viewed the image. And other people then use Scream as an icon because it kind of developed its own history. And they then used the Scream as a meme in history, especially World War II. It was shared around in the world as a image, known image. So I had to explain what a meme was to children, right? This is me trying to explain what memes is or memes are for my students, and this is the the expression of the children, and they all laughed when they saw this. During this time, these 2 memes were very well known, and shared like this, and they immediately understood the language of what was being presented here. So I had to engage them and ask, what's going on in this image? How do we tell a story with images? And because it's an image or language they understand, they could easily participate. So you had both what is a meme, and then again try to connect it to Edvard Munch's way of working with art. So we had a couple of success factors here, as you can see. One of them was the digital broadcasting and not a video. This is because we understood that having a video, as I said, was limited. The quality of it was a high resolution video. And when you can't transmit that quality, what's the point of it? We want the children to understand that, you know, this is an art experience sort of in a way, but if the quality is bad, there's no point in doing it. So we had a digital broadcasting with them. We had a studio, me with MUNCH. We had a studio with camera, microphone, a stand, a couple of cards for ourselves as a manuscript, as a script, and then for our coffee. That's it. It was very easy to do. It was very easy to set up. And then, of course, we had 3 lights. We had one in front of us and 2 on the sides. And this is something that we borrowed from the photography department here at the museum. So we decided to do 1 broadcast per class. And this is because we wanted to have good participation. We wanted everyone to participate here. Another success factor was using Teams as a medium. But this is because we had to use Teams, because our municipality, Oslo, wanted all of our institutions within the municipality to utilize Teams. So we were forced to use it. So if you guys use Zoom, that's fine. And of course, the last one was good dialogue and good inclusion of voices. You had so many different people here, but let's say that one class is maximum 27 kids. You have them in the classroom, that you have you projected on a big screen. The sound has to come from their speakers and not from the computer. And it's so important for them to see you and see that you see them, because you react in real time. It's a connection that you create there and then with the children. So what we learned was that we reach further. We reached people, students who use sign language. So we had to have a interpreter, tolk. We had special classes outside of Oslo, and children who do not have access to art from different sides of the different cities. So it was really interesting to see who we reached and who we included in this dialogue about art and memes. It was the right level of innovation, meaning that it wasn't too high tech. It was just the right amount that was required of you and the class as well. Because it's a lot of the class to ask, right, to participate in such a way. But if everything is just right, if you have the same equipment, it's easier to communicate. We had the relevant packaging that created engagement with the target group. These children understood the language immediately because it's a part of their world. And then it wasn't trying to convince them that art is good. It was rather, you can create this as well. Dialogue engages both students and teachers. This was a class group activity. Some of the tests that we did, where we saw that the video took a lot of the time in the previous concept, you could see that the teachers tried then to be the mediators and to engage the children, but instead here, that dialogue between us and the other side of the screen was a more natural development. And of course, the digital equipment. We learned as we went that we needed better lighting. We needed to show some original art. That's what they enjoyed as well. And to do that, you needed to have equipment that could do that. For example, in our previous location at the old Munch Museum before we moved to the new one, we were placed in an area where they were packing the art. There were putting the art in these boxes. So what we could do was to just turn the camera and then tell them, look at what we're doing here. This is original art. And we're, as you can see, we're working with moving. That was also engaging for them. Some numbers here. This is of course in Norwegian, but this is who we reached in the spring season alone. In 2021 of the spring, we had 93 broadcastings for a total of 2,246 students in Oslo alone, meaning these children were seventh graders, only seventh graders in Oslo. And then we had 48 broadcastings for a total of 1,200 students in other municipalities around Norway. And that was a bit tricky because that meant different quality of both internet and digital equipment, because there were different requirements around, and also not everyone has great internet, right? So in some cases we needed to do 2 classes in one room. That was horrible, I have to say. That was like 50 students or 50 kids in the same room. It's very difficult to engage and have a dialogue when they expect a performance. It's like you become dehumanized in a way through the screen when it's more kids, because they think you're a video, and you need to break the wall and be like, hi, I can see you, I hear you, I am a person behind the screen. So that was interesting. And this is the content that was sent in. This is just 3 examples, 3 short examples. So this is what the children did was to use the art of Edvard Munch. So we had a map of paintings and photos of Edvard Munch, and they then had to create memes after they were done with the session with me, which just lasted for like 30 minutes, maximum 30 minutes of a dialogue with them, right? Afterwards, they worked with creating memes in their own locations. So this one here says, when you haven't followed in class and the teacher says you have to read aloud in front of the class. So what they do is they really look at the image. They really look at the image and the paintings and say, how can I create content out of the art of Edvard Munch? The second one here says, when the teacher puts you in the hallway, or when the teacher forces you to sit in the hallway. And then the last one, which is my favorite, when you're sore from workout and you can't reach to your toes, this last one. So it's all about the different humoristic aspects and not making art as serious all the time. But I told the children, you can create 2 memes each. One meme can be very funny if you want, and the other one can be something more serious that has to do with being alone or being in love or feeling very strong emotions. And in that way also we use the art of Edvard Munch to convey the different emotions or the inner emotional life that Edvard Munch also tried to convey through his art. Also the humor in it. The humor of Edvard Munch's art is something that often gets lost. So we had to like show these different sides through very short sentences, right? So that was also a challenge to kind of figure out how do you do storytelling in a very short time. And that's something you become an expert on when you do 4 broadcastings every day. So you do 4 broadcastings right after each other, you're done, next one. And then in the end, you can just abstract the content until you have the perfect script. And that's all I have.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet you, and thank you for inviting me into this first Friday lunchtime seminar. My name is John. I'm a British DJ and artist and a designer and filmmaker, photographer, all kinds of things, basically. And I'm based in Oulu in northern Finland. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story of an organization called Taikabox, which is run by myself and my wife, Tanya, who is a choreographer and dancer and producer. And we started this organization a long time ago. We first started collaborating in 2005 in the UK, and we moved to Finland 10 years later. So I'm going to change from my camera into, this is about the story of Talkbox, and specifically about what we've been doing over the past few years in terms of using digital in order to reach out to people. So this is us back in 2007, performing in London. The thing about Talkbox is that I use technology a lot and Tanya uses body. And the idea is to bring those two together and find different ways to enhance choreographic expression and connection with audiences and engagement with people who see the work, finding new platforms for the work. Initially, we were making a work which was very stage-based, performing it in theatres. As a technician or somebody who was, like in this one, I was generating a sound environment. Tony liked to put me on stage to increase the connection between the two of us. I was never really hidden in the wings or hidden in the lighting box. I was always there in costume, doing my thing, to make it just more kind of apparent to audiences about what was going on. We moved up by 2014. We'd moved into kind of like mid-scale work, and we did this piece in Edinburgh. We had 5 dancers and 2 musicians, various projectors, various sensors, and we toured. We were based in Wales. We toured Wales with this one, and yeah, we performed in Edinburgh as well. And this was kind of like, felt like a bit of a high point artistically in the stuff that we were doing for stage. And then we moved to Finland, and we did a co-production with a Welsh producer and Finnish producer, where we had an audience of 20 people and everybody's wearing headphones, and we generated a really intimate kind of sound environment using a binaural stereo sound, using various microphones in the outside the building, inside the building, in the space, and the dancers had microphones and had their heartbeats monitored as well. And what happened with this was it was all improvised, and at certain points, the audience became part of the soundscape. So we had people singing, we had people drumming on the floor, we had people dancing. And it was like the journey that we went on tended to bring people together. So our work is all about kind of interactivity and human connections and creating, facilitating environments for people to really connect with each other and with the art. We also do a lot of site-specific work and work off of stage, particularly since we've moved to Finland and we've kind of expanded into different realms. This is a research project that we used to do regularly in abandoned buildings on the Ghost Island, quite near where we live, looking at kind of historical, social contexts of these buildings. We work with young people quite often. We've done work in schools and youth centres, and training young people in the kind of dance and technology kind of side of things. But what I'd like to tell you about particularly is something that we've been working on kind of since we moved. There's a big difference between living we lived in Cardiff in Wales. We were very connected to the sector physically. There's a lot of people in Cardiff, there's a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of venues. And then we moved up to Oulu in northern Finland and kind of put ourselves on what we feel is like the margins of Europe. There's a lot less in terms of venues, there's a lot less infrastructure, the sector is a lot smaller, the audiences are a lot smaller. So we wanted to maintain connections with the UK, and we wanted to kind of break down some of the geographical boundaries of living in this little place in northern Finland. So the first project that we did was working with a dancer in Wales and a dancer here in Oulu, and audiences in both places, and just using FaceTime to connect the two together. So there's I can't remember the name. Our dancer in Wales was in a festival with like a couple of hundred people watching. Tanya was in an empty theatre. There was like a handful of people that we'd invited, and they'd choreographed this piece together. in the same studio, and then we performed it in 2 different studios. We rehearsed it using FaceTime, and then we performed it at to do 2 different audiences. This was our first kind of experiment with telesymbiotic, we called it at the time. It's kind of remote performance thing, and it was kind of interesting. And we did another project whereby we had a musician in Denmark, and he was playing live, and we had a kind of camera link and a high quality audio link. That kind of went a little bit wonky because the technology let us down. The venue kind of changed the schedule around, and that really, it kind of put us off for a few years. But we still continue doing this kind of research between our studio here in Oulu, and we worked with somebody up in northern Sweden, and we kind of did a bit of research with that, and continue to kind of try this idea of connecting 2 studios together so that people can dance together without actually having to travel. You know, we're quite keen on being as sustainable as possible, and we've stopped flying, and we've stopped taking the traditional method of rehearsing a piece and creating a piece and then taking it around touring. We've got various ways of working with local dancers and reducing the carbon footprint of the project. The story is quite interesting, particularly for you guys as well. We were part of a project in 2020, which was initiated by Dansinitiativet in Luleå, and there's partners all across Norrbotten, and in Norway as well, and in Russia. And the idea was to create 4 short pieces that would then tour to each other's countries. But then, of course, that was kind of 2019. We started that project, and then 2020 happened, and we couldn't travel. We couldn't cross borders. So it was a huge project. And we kind of, the Dansinitiativet asked us if we would take over and see if it was possible to do the project without crossing borders, if it was possible to use technology in order to create something. So we ended up creating an evening's performance with 6 dancers in 4 different countries and 4 audiences. And it was fascinating, and that helped us to develop the technology and the kind of the system that we use in order to connect studios together. So we refined it over the course of that year, and this is just like a little illustration of what you'd actually need to create a connected studio. So imagine this is your studio. There's a wall in the middle of your studio, which is a projection screen. So you use a projector, because it's really important to see dancers like life-sized, so really sort of connect them rather than looking at them in like little squares in Zoom. So if you hang a projector like this, so you can get the image all the way to the floor, you can create this kind of illusion that the floor from the room continues through to the screen. You have a camera here, which shows what's happening on that side of the room. You have the same thing on the other side of the room. And you put a dancer on each side. So they kind of end up dancing with each other full size on the screen. But then if you connect that camera to that projector and that projector to that camera, these screens can be in different rooms. They can be different in cities, different countries, different parts of the world. So you kind of need a system for bringing these together. Oh no, it's not on this slide, I've changed it. Yeah, so we found out like different ways to use the internet in order to connect these screens together. And this is a shot from Dansinitiativet, from the studio in Luleå. This is in our studio that we had in Oulu. The studio on the screen is the one in Luleå. The dancers were working with feathers. And to the audience, what the audience saw was they quite comfortably understood that these 2 dancers were working together. It was really important for us that we had live dancers in the studio with the audience, so that they can connect really intimately with the audience can hear them, smell them, and you know, you've got that strong connection. But then by connecting the dancers together through the screen, you actually bring the dancers into the space from different countries, and it was fascinating. It was really interesting, and at a time when we had to restrict audience numbers. Like in Oulu, we had like 8 people in the audience. In Luleå, for some of the performances, they couldn't have any audience at all. In Norway, it was a mixture. We did one venue at a festival where it was packed, and then another one was in the dancers' living room, where there was like 8 people squeezed onto sofas. And in Russia, they had like 40 people at a time. We also worked out ways of breaking down this kind of Zoom square kind of vibe, and using the screen in different ways and using it quite creatively. And we did some research with an organization in Hungary, the Central Europe Dance Theatre. And we spent a week with 3 dancers in our studio and 3 dancers in their studio with this setup, and we explored things about like how to get one dancer to seem as if they're looking at a dancer in a different space, and how they can connect kind of using their eyes and their focus, as well as their dynamics and what they're saying, things like that. So there's a little bit of video here from some of our research. This is from On the Dance Hack in 2021, and a piece called Remembering Futures, which we worked with a studio in Russia for 6 months. Just like once a week we would meet up. So this shows kind of the 2 studios connected in a very abstract way. So the dancers in one space were kind of ghostly, or the 2 studios were layered up so that you could see 6 or 7 dancers at the same time. This is the piece with the company in Russia. We were working with folk tales and fairy tales, and we actually connected the studio using this kind of rolled up newspaper as well. Did some kind of theatrical magic. We've done a few projects where we stream. This is the view from Russia from a performance that we did, where we had an overhead camera in Oulu. Yeah, we've done a few projects where we are purely streaming, and we streamed projects into schools as well. But I always feel that it's really important to have a dialogue and to have a connection with people on the other end of the screen. And if those people are in a theatre space, if they're kind of sat in a group together, then I feel that's really special. We can have more kind of control over what their experience is, rather than just watching something on the little screen, looking at it when they feel like it. What we found in these projects is that when you've got audiences in different spaces, if these audiences can see each other, then they can make like a really special connection as well. And you know, we performed, I don't know, we performed like 6 or 7 times at the end of 2020, which was like the whole year was locked down and people couldn't go to theatres and see other audiences. The audiences that we had felt like really special, that they would be able to sort of connect with people in different countries and feel as if they're part of something bigger. We've also used this system. We have a children's show called Born Old, which is based on the Finnish epic of Kalevala, which we've performed to classes of children in Finland and up in Norway as well, where we bring another performer in who is a native language speaker. They become the storyteller. We've done this in Swedish as well, so we have 2 performers in the space, and one is, because it's for children, it's for small children, so there's quite a lot of text, and so the text is in the children's native language, and it works as a duet. And we got invited to the Faroe Islands to perform at a children's theatre festival there. We couldn't go because of the lockdown, so we postponed the performance for a year. But what we ended up doing is we didn't want to go there. We didn't want to fly there. We thought, well, let's do the performance in a hybrid style. So there was an audience in the Nordic House in the Faroe Islands with a performer there, and we had our performer and myself in a studio in Oulu with various cameras, and we had projectors onto the floor in both spaces and onto the back wall in the Faroe Islands. And we rehearsed for a week, and the performers made this duet where it kind of looks like they're in the same space. And the audiences really went for it. They really loved it. They loved the fact that our performer was kind of there, particularly as the floor projection, they connected in both spaces. So this has got lots of potential for going to any country, really. We've been talking to people in Japan and Korea about potentially performing over there. The time zone difference is a bit of an issue. We'd have to be performing like in the middle of the night for children, in the morning over there. So yeah, the system that we've been using up until now is called Video Ninja, which is a peer-to-peer screen video and audio sharing thing, which works really well if there's only 2 people in the virtual room. If you start to go out to more people, involve more people, it's a bit scary on everybody. It pushes everybody's computer a little bit too hard. So we've used it for 4 participants, and that was kind of pushing it a little bit. The good news that I've had recently is that the software that I use for all the video stuff that I do is called Isadora, and Isadora have teamed up with Zoom to create something. They're testing it at the moment, which enables video, audio, and data to be shared across the Zoom framework, which means that hopefully at some point next year, I'll be able to do these projects without using like a separate bit of software, and it will be a lot more stable and better quality is the plan, by going directly from Isadora to Isadora. Sorry, that got really quite technical. That's me. That's where you can find out more about some of the things that we do up here in Finland.
Vi ses igen nästa vecka med 2 till presentationer. Samma tid, samma plats.
Fantastiskt.
Och